Hello, everybody. It's the old man ranting from the kitchen. Well, of course, you noticed I'm not in the kitchen. I'm back in the back room studio as usual. Getting back in the kitchen has been very, very difficult for me because the evil sock monkey is taking over the kitchen. That's what I call my son when he goes through this. There's all that stuff in the kitchen. Why can't you go into some other room? Well, we're putting together a studio in the back end of the apartment, so there you go. Hey, today I want to talk about something that's really bothering me. And it's really a simple thing in my mind that's bothering me, but maybe it's not in yours. So let's start a conversation today, shall we? And let's talk about Black Lives Matter, or is it not all lives matter? And some of the current events that have happened this last week have been absolutely monstrous as far as I'm concerned. First of all, we have everybody over the Floyd case, and the verdict has come in that he was definitely murdered. That's the way that the verdict looks. That's the way the officer in this particular indictment has been charged with. And it looks like, unfortunately, unless he has a bit of luck and really works on his appeal with some basically solid evidence, which I thought that they had presented throughout the trial, by the way, that there is some real interesting information that I think they left out. I think that the trial didn't even think about. And it gets to be to the point where what do you want to do? I mean, what do you want to think about on this particular trial? How do you weigh this out? Well, I sat down and thought about it very carefully, and I'll be very honest with you. At first, the first thing that came to my mind was the factor that I watched the video and I felt that yes, he definitely put an awful lot of pressure on the man's back and on the up, in the neck area of this gentleman, and pressing him down against the concrete without a doubt had to have affected the situation and the outcome. There's no doubt. But wait a minute, you guys. Wait, let's look at this in two sides for our conversation. First of all, in the first big side I want to look at it is okay, we saw the video. We saw him being taken down and attempted to be handcuffed. We noticed that he was fighting the officer. Well, he was fighting the officer violently until naturally he was overcome and pressed down on the ground. Number two, this gentleman is a criminal whose family has now collected $28 million in wrongful death, which I think is totally ridiculous. And when you look at the backstory of his life, Floyd's life, he's not hero material, period. He's a felon. He was high on drugs. He has a drug history. I mean, the list goes on. Women beating. The man is definitely something wrong. Now, I'm not saying it was right that they should do what they did and forcefully hold him down and he lost his life. I'm not saying that. When I looked at the video myself on two different platforms and different angles, I came to basically the same conclusion. And I thought to myself in my mind, this is without a doubt, he killed him. I mean, couldn't he have let him up if he was not breathing or having a problem and had a taser ready, or two officers, one grabbing one side and lifting him up and taking the pressure off his neck? That to me was the wrong part of this whole thing. Now, I understand that in the trial, they talked about the factor that everything was done by the book and that there was no outside, I don't know, I think forcefulness, or shall we say, he's a black man, I'm a white man, I'm going to stomp him off type attitude. I didn't see it there. Now, maybe I'm missing something. I don't really think so. But what I did see there was a situation where this gentleman was helpless. He could no more get out of that situation than fly to the moon as far as that's concerned. Okay, now then, we go through the process. He's struggling for his life. The officer thinks that he is struggling for his life if he lets go of the gentleman, and the gentleman passes away. Okay, great. Now, here's the third side of the story. The officer was white. the particular felon was black. Wow. So this starts rioting. Ridiculous. It shouldn't have started of anything. When this whole Floyd thing broke out, do you realize how many billions of dollars have been wasted? How many entrepreneurs, small businesses in Portland, Seattle, all over the United States, marches, and all that caused damage by what I consider, as far as I'm concerned, not all protesters. I'm not saying protesting is wrong. Protesting has a place, and it is a valuable system to get action. But when protesting and terrorists, and these are domestic terrorists that are paid to make that protest into a violent act, when that occurs, that's no longer a protest. Then you've got a situation of violence. You've got a situation of officers' lives at stake, communities at stake, individuals, and of course, commerce at stake. It's simple. It's an economy type base situation. You tear down the economy, you tear down all these opportunities for people to make money. Let's be very clear about this. They didn't come out and start this whole thing to begin with. But for some reason, these entrepreneurs are immediately attacked, like in Seattle, where we had Chops, where they closed off, and you know the story, the whole block, and literally tore it down. They took a police station and tore it apart. I guess that makes them feel big. I mean, wow, I tore apart a police station. Woo, woo, woo. I was right there with them. We had a riot in the capital, Washington, D.C., didn't we? What did that happen? What did it accomplish? Well, we now have walls around a building that has been built as a statue, as far as I'm concerned, to the freedom, and is owned by the people of this country. Black, blue, green, purple, or white color should have nothing to do with this whatsoever. American people own those particular sites. We elect our leaders to live and do their business in those sites. But now it looks like a war zone. Incredible, isn't it? Absolutely incredible. But what started all this? Was Floyd the one that started this whole mess? No, folks, it isn't. It isn't at all. I can remember way back in the 60s when my own hometown, which I was living in, Tacoma, Washington, when 6th Avenue, which is now Martin Luther King Way, was actually on fire, and they were destroying it over riots that popped off from the problems in Watts, California. I can remember that. I can remember the ugliness. It's really strange, isn't it? Most kids are growing up without seeing color. Amazing. But yet, as we get older, the color issue seems to grow in some parts of this country. I'm not denying that what we have done to the African American population when they first came over here as slaves was wrong. You doggone right it was wrong. It was inhumane and it should not have happened. That's true. There's no doubt. There's been other denominations and other races like the Native American Indian, who we actually killed off all of the buffalo at one time to see if we could starve them to death as we were moving them further and further across the United States out west because of the riches and the grounds and all of the stuff that had to be done. I mean, let's look at it. Let's be honest about this whole thing. It wasn't it? Now, I don't see them burning down our cities, although they've done quite well. They've made e-commerce work for them. They have come out with situations of peaceful coexistence. They've come out with electing leadership. They have done, as a solvent nation, lived in peace with the United States and grown. But yet, the African American folks, for some strange reason, most of which, none of them, including their grandmother, grandfather, or 2 generations back, was even affected by this, still have a chip on the shoulder that the white supremacist, that would be me in this case, because my skin is white, I guess, white supremacist puts the thumb down, puts it down hard on African Americans. We don't allow them education. We do not allow them to move forward. I don't believe that. I believe that in some school districts, both sides are not being treated fairly as far as getting a good education is concerned. Do I think that there are still the good old redneck boys that would rather take an African American out and throw him off a cliff? Yeah, they're still here. We've got wonderful organizations like the Skinheads. That's a great Nazi group that should be eliminated no matter what. We have the Ku Klux Klan, which should have been eliminated. They are the hate groups. They are the ones that are causing these problems. And there's many other groups. Don't just classify those two groups as the domestic terrorists, because I know there's more. And every time we have a court trial over a situation where a law officer is affected or it's a black and white situation, we have riots afterwards. Now what's happening, and it makes me absolutely gag, is the factor that even our governor in the state of Washington came out with a great big paragraph on how Floyd was such a wonderful person, basically, and how, oh, he was so sorry for his death, and how now we must crack down and we must get rid of this situation of black versus white. Oh, come on. All lives matter, folks. I don't care if you're green, purple, blue, yellow, or white. Everybody's life matters. And to think that one right now in this time period in the history of the United States, that we have this splitting of the ways is absolutely unbelievable. I can't even imagine it. When I was a kid, yeah, there was African Americans. We at that time, and this is the N word. Well, I'm not even going to say it, to be honest with you, because it's not PC correct. But the word was used to describe them back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Okay. And it is derogatory. I consider it a derogatory comment. I consider crackers a derogatory comment. I mean, it's in both sides of the street if you look at it. What are we going to do? Our kids right now are sitting here watching the media. They're sitting here in the influence of black versus white. I wonder why. Because you see, kids, when they start this life, as I've mentioned before, they start this life with a great feeling of everybody is happy and loving. And as years go by and as time goes by, the color situation erodes simply because they're taught that. The same as the African Americans are taught that you were a product of a slave, that you, when you are born in this country, your history, your culture goes back to slavery. No, it doesn't. It goes back to your homeland. Okay? When they brought you over here in chains, your third or fourth generation, I would assume it would be probably fourth or fifth now, generation back all those years. Yes, they were brought over here slaves. They were sold off as slaves. Yeah, I can't even imagine it. And yes, I understand where the African American population or Black America is coming from. I understand that. But I'm telling you right now, you're not the only ones. And on top of all of this that's going around, every time that we have a riot, we have a shooting, we have other civil unrest and criminal action, all of us suffer, not just one race. All of us suffer. Do I believe it was fair in the 50s and 60s that black people had to eat in a different part of the building? Oh, heck no, I didn't. And I still to this day believe that was wrong. Do I believe that Martin Luther King was a great man? Without a doubt. In fact, every time I try to say his name, I stumble over it because to me, there was a leader. There was a true leader. Do I feel that black people don't have an opportunity to do and to exchange thoughts and to be entrepreneurs, to be leaders? Yes, I do. I believe that they can do it. I believe that they are doing it. Oprah Winfrey is a good example. She's a billionaire. Denzel Washington is a gentleman who lived in Tacoma at one time. And he was very interesting. He was named after Denzel Washington, but it was a little bit different. And he's not the actor, by the way. But he had a positive attitude. You know, he was a little standoffish, sure. Maybe in a white crowd, he was a little bit nervous, but he always had a smile. He always made a living and he always moved on. Now, personally, in business, I've met hundreds of people. I've been very, very fortunate in my life to work with some of the, for I guess, years now, some of the best people in business that were African American. They were into real estate, they were into banking, they were into all types and being very successful. Did they, or should I say, were they PC incorrect? No, they weren't PC incorrect. They didn't look at this as a situation of him versus me or them versus all of us. They looked at it as a situation as getting an education. We can do just as well, black or white, with an education. That's the way they looked at it. They looked at there's a challenge. Okay, maybe there were a few roadblocks thrown up. There's roadblocks thrown up for every type of situation you can think of when it comes to our population. Maybe you're Russian and people in your neighborhood, oh, Russians, oh. In fact, we're hearing a lot about that in certain areas in townships in the state of Washington. Well, they're most of those people are Ukrainians, and Ukrainians and Russians can't get along. Oh, come on. Why did they come to the United States to begin with? Why? Because they had a dream. They wanted freedom. They wanted under a world of security, not under the thumb of a dictation or a dictatorship. They came to America. Unfortunately, when they come and get here, some of that bad stuff that grows and takes over their minds as time goes by because they aren't really achieving what they thought they could, they have to have an excuse. So they immediately pass that off. Does it happen? Sure it does. It happens in all denominations, all races, everybody. I mean, that's normal. But unfortunately, today's world is full of so much hate and so much BS that now it's a struggle just to become and stay an American. I'm proud of our flag. The red stripes to me are the most crucial of the whole flag itself. Why? Because good men and women, black and white, all different types of denominations, all different types of individuals band together, and a lot of them gave their lives so we could be free. Freedom, my friend, is where it's all at. Freedom makes a difference in this country. You bet it does. We have the opportunity, and I have the opportunity to sit here right now and spend 20 minutes with you folks today on The Old Man Rants from the Kitchen and talk about stuff that if I was in China and decided to talk about the government in China, I'd be slapped down, shot, or thrown out immediately. We have freedoms here. If we want to go out and take a hike, we take a hike. If we want to go out and enjoy the ocean, take the family on a trip, we have the freedom to do so. In other countries, it's a little bit different, especially in those that are communistic or socialized countries. It's a little bit different. And when you see the red on that flag, that's the blood of those that have died because they gave their life for you. They gave their life for freedom. All colors, all lives in their minds matter. So with this whole thing going on with the Floyd trial now over with, and the media will continue to pound negativity through that trial episode. With all of this going on in America right now, with faulty elections, at least that's the allegations that are being made. The demo rats, as I call them, are arguing with the Republicans. That's the 10% of each party that I give a nickname to because they've gone off the table of real serious leadership. They have fallen off that table. We put them on that pedestal, that table, because we believe that they will succeed in helping us, because we're their boss, in helping us build America. And a lot of them are slipping off. And whenever a politician like the Speaker of the House, who made that elegant speech and thanked Floyd for dying so we could get this black thing straightened out, was the most insensitive, ugliest bunch of BS rhetoric that this country has ever heard. And I pray that my grandchildren don't hear it. That's how bad I feel about it. And when we have senators and governors writing, "Oh, it's so shameful that this man was killed." Yes, it's wrong he was killed. But wait a minute, folks. Would he have been killed if he was just walking out down the street, minding his own business, got in his car, drove home? Would he have been killed if he was not in some criminal activity? I don't know. I would hope not. But in this particular case, because of circumstances, that's what happened. Do we need to start monitoring law enforcement? Sure, we do, to a certain degree, because in every profession, there's 10% that should never have been put in that profession to begin with. And that includes riot officers, as I call them, or officers that think that they are absolute supermen. And we've seen them. But yet I've seen so many in different areas of law enforcement that are incredible individuals. They've got great stories to tell. They've protected and served their communities with honor and pride. They have made the sacrifice of a journey, and it is a journey, a career. It takes you away from your family that actually can erode the security of your family, because of some nitwit moron that decides all of a sudden that, hey, I'm a gangbanger, man. I'm from the other side of town, and we get cops shot. This is BS. This is a bunch of BS, but it's what's happening. And law enforcement officers now are looking at budget cuts, more training, and severe situations of laws that they have been upholding that are now being put on. For instance, the drug thing, when in the state of Washington, an officer checks your pockets after being arrested and finds a bunch of marijuana or something, or heroin. Oh, hey, man. No, I sent these pants out to be laundered. I don't know how that got into my possession. So it goes from a felony to a misdemeanor. Slap on a hand. Oop, don't do that again. Oh, I won't. I'll make sure I wear other pants. We've taken criminals and we have opened the door just a little bit, just enough, with law changes right now, with all these problems that we are having in this country. We have opened that door up just enough for them to start figuring out how to make it work for them. And the new laws, well, they're scary, folks. They really are. And they're not just for the white man, they're for everybody. So the next time we have a chance to sit down and chat, I hope that we can find a happier topic that I can rant about, like why chipmunks insist on crapping on my deck. Until then, you all have an absolutely wonderful weekend. We'll hopefully get back live on Facebook soon. But until then, we have to do the pre-recorded situation here in our back of the kitchen studios in South Hill of Puyallup, Washington. So remember, if you keep a positive spirit in mind and keep love in your heart, you'll always keep a smiling. Have a great week.